of losch. Central place theory of losch. So it was given in 1940 by Losch. It is based on the demand side of economies, because very clearly Losch uses it combines the maximum revenue approach. His work was translated in English in 1954. Now what he sought to explain? He sought to explain shape and size of the market area or complementary area within which location would command the largest revenue. He based his theory on the study of entire Germany. So all the Germany is taken into account. In case of Christoller, it was only southern Germany. In fact, he was dissatisfied with the central place theory of Christoller and felt it was too rigid and specific. Thus, Losch took into consideration 150 goods and services, including manufacturing and other industries. Okay, so he found that Christoller's theory was not up to the mark, it was away from reality. Here also, there are several assumptions on which the theory is based. The landscape is an isotropic surface. Both buyers and sellers are economic rational humans. Here he is assuming that supply's entire region is constant. Very clearly shows how he is basing his theory from demand perspective. Then demand for production decreases with increase in price. If you increase the price, the demand would be what? It would decline. If this increase is result of increase in transportation cost, then the demand would decrease with distance from the production center. He treated each function having separate range, threshold, and the same settlement, but if required, a settlement can also be specialized in particular function. Okay, so every function was what? It was different. It was having different range, different threshold population was required. So it is very similar to what was there in the Christoller theory. But what is different? That in Christoller theory, all the central places, higher order particularly, were non-specialized. Non-specialized. Because if you remember, they were also behaving as the lower order central places. Okay? So they were what? They were non-specialized. हमने देखा था A was behaving also as B and C. याद है? So if it was an international airport, there was also a domestic airport. There was also, if you talk about a railway station, there was also a bus station. Okay? So they are non-specialized. So on account of these assumptions, result is more complicated pattern of central places than what Christoller's central place theory represents. ठीक है, अब मैं थोड़ा सा समझाता हूं क्योंकि थोड़ा सा ये डिफिकल्ट कंसेप्ट है लॉश का. So Losch is very clear about that you can earn, main objective is not reducing cost, main objective is earning profit. That means if the profit can be earned by increasing revenue, even if the cost increases, the revenue is increasing more, you are earning essentially more profit. So objective is what? It is profit maximization. Okay? That is the essential objective. That means depending upon the demand, a city or a central place can choose to become specialized or non-specialized. ठीक है. Take the example of guidance. Suppose if I was teaching some other subject like commerce. Graduation में मेरा BCom था. I could have chosen commerce to teach. It would have been very difficult to survive. I wouldn't have been able to establish my own institution. Probably I would be collaborating with some other and I would be teaching. Why? Because the number of customers are very low. ठीक है. Demand of this subject, people choosing commerce as the optional. It is what? It is very less. ठीक है. But I chose geography. और सपोज मैं कॉमर्स ले रहा होता, अगर मैं कॉमर्स पढ़ा रहा होता, इफ आई थॉट ऑफ ओपनिंग माई ओन इंस्टीट्यूशन, कैन आई से आई वुड हैव टू एसेंशियली प्रोवाइड अदर सब्जेक्ट्स एज वेल फॉर इट टू बी सस्टेनेबल. जीएस भी पढ़ाना पड़ता. फॉर इट टू बी सस्टेनेबल आई वुडंट हैव बीन एबल टू स्पेशलाइज. ठीक है. बट आई चोज ज्योग्राफी ऑप्शनल. एंड इफ यू गो फ्यू ईयर्स बैक, द सिचुएशन ऑफ ज्योग्राफी ऑप्शनल वॉज दैट पत्थर उठाओ और मारो, तो या तो पबैड का होगा या ज्योग्राफी का होगा. इट यूज टू बी लाइक दिस. सो what is the case? The demand was very high, and because of the high demand, I could afford to specialize. ठीक है ना. So again, it is all about the factor of demand. If the demand is present, then a city can specialize in a particular function. If the demand is less, then what will happen? The city would not specialize, it would be non-specialized city. It would be then behaving as what? Can I say more in line with the principle of Christoller? Then the objective would be to minimize cost. You'll be earning profit by minimizing the cost. But if there is demand, you can earn profit by maximizing the revenue. इतनी बात समझ में आई? ठीक है. So thus, according to losch, at the same level of hierarchy, there can be two type of central places. One type of central place would be what? It would be non-specialized. While the other type of central place would be a specialized central place. Non-specialized and specialized central places. So where non-specialized central places would be present? Where demand is low. Demand is low. So here what would be the objective? Here objective is to reduce cost or minimize the cost. Minimize देखो यहाँ पर, minimize the cost. Yes. और किस चीज का कॉस्ट होगा यार? Cost of product is part of the cost of production से related होगा ना. So here the objective is to minimize the cost which is located, which is to be given, service or good, whatever it is. So that means such type of central places, you tell me, will they obey the Christoller's principle? ठीक है. Thus such central places will obey Christoller's principle. Christoller's principle. Then where the demand is specialized would be where demand is high, and here objective is to maximize the revenue. revenue. ठीक है, so it would be a different type of central place. That is one thing which losch is talking about. ये बात समझ में आ गई. अब दूसरी बात करते हैं. Second thing, losch is very very clear that majority of, or you can say for losch, multifunctionality is a rule. Multifunctionality is what? It is a rule, while monofunctionality is an exception. Functionality is an exception. ठीक है. Very importantly, what he does, based upon this principle, he takes 150 goods and services. For each he considers a separate range and complementary areas. And thus complementary areas होना चाहिए. So he's considering a separate range and thus complementary areas. What he does, he takes these and make their range overlap. Make their range overlap. And rotates them. And he is rotating them. ठीक है. रोटेट करने का मतलब है, what he is doing, in other words, he is calculating probability. ठीक है. What is the chance or probability? So अब देखते हैं what he is actually doing. Suppose यहां पर हम दो तरह के central places ले रहे हैं. One type of central place is what? One type of central place is the non-specialized, and other type of central place is specialized central place. So suppose this is the center over which the complementary areas are to be superimposed. ठीक है. So suppose हम यहाँ पर एक order of service की बात कर रहे हैं. So this is particularly what? Complementary area of, or with respect to, service 1. With respect to service 1. अब इसमें दो तरह के सेंटर्स हो सकते हैं लोअर ऑर्डर. One is this one. ठीक है. अब दूसरा लेते हैं. This is complementary area with respect to service 2. यहां पर भी दो तरह के हो गए. service 3. Every service has its own range and thus complementary areas. So here also there are two types. ठीक है, so we can go on for 150 goods and services. So what losch does, he keeps all of them and make them overlap. Why is making them overlap? Because multifunctionality is rule. There is no separate hierarchy. Christoller के मॉडल में there was separate hierarchy for transportation, separate hierarchy for marketing, separate hierarchy for administration. Here he is taking a single hierarchy because the cities would be multifunctional. What he is doing, he is rotating them, and after rotation he finds that there is actually a probability where there is concentration of concentration of specialized central places in one region and concentration of non-specialized central places in other region. ठीक है, so अगर हम यहां पर देखें, if there is, this is basically what? This is the specialized CPs are located in these sectors. So presence of specialized CPs, what it denotes to me? Can I say it denotes that there is high demand? देखा था हमने, स्पेशलाइजेशन कब होगा? When there is high demand. Thus this high demand tells me that this is actually rich population sector. This is actually rich sector which is located. On the other hand, where there is concentration of non-specialized CPs, very clearly it is reflective of what? Low demand. That means here what we will be finding? Can I say it is poor sector? Location of the poor sector is found. ठीक है? So this very clearly tells me what? it is telling me that the distribution of central places would not be uniform as Christoller visualized. In case of Christoller, what was happening? As you moved away from the central place, the level of development was uniformly reducing. Here, the reduction is not uniform. The location of central places is not uniform. They are located in sectors of rich and poor. Can I say it would be actually related with the role of transportation arteries? It would be related with the role of transportation arteries. So suppose there is a center which is here, suppose it is located. Can I say that this center would be connected by, suppose, national highways? Can we say that? So it would be connected by national highways. National highways like this. इसको थोड़ा, इसको एक मिनट जाओ, even बना लो, just make it more even. Distance which I am trying to make it more even. So suppose these are transportation arteries. Can I say the demand of land around these transportation arteries वो high होगा या low होगा? High होगा. As I move away from these transportation arteries, what will happen with the price of land? Price of land would be decreasing. This is the transportation arteries. As you move away, there would be distance decay. ठीक है? So, if I look into this, can I say these transportation arteries, will they attract more rich people? With more demand, that means some specialized centers can emerge here. Can we say that? Those people who are located away from these transportation arteries, can I say they will have to, because हमने देखा था losch के industrial location model में भी, this is the market. As you move away from the market, what happens with demand? It declines. So as distance increases, what will happen with demand? It would decrease. So if the demand is decreasing, what will happen with here? The central places would be located. Can I say they would have to focus upon reducing cost? They would very clearly will have to focus upon reducing the cost. Thus, what type of arrangement would arise? Can I say a sectoral arrangement would be arising, where there would be presence of alternate rich and poor sectors would be found. Thus, the central places would not be uniformly spaced as was the case in the Christoller's central place theory. Here, the presence of transportation arteries, what it does? It modifies how the settlements or how the central places would be located. ठीक है? So this is the model of losch. What losch is trying to say. हमने देखा था इसको. If you just remember, इसको मैं अगर compare करूं, if you remember, this was the nesting pattern of Christoller. He was talking with respect to marketing, याद है? This was the nesting pattern which was talked about by Christoller. अब इस nesting pattern में can you see one very important thing, that is the location of central places more even? Yes or no? They are more evenly distributed. As you move away from the central places, what is happening with the level of development? It is more uniformly declining. So if suppose this is the main central place and I move away from this central place, what is happening? There is decline in the level of development taking place. Okay? And these are also very evenly placed, because here there is no factor which is bringing change. Surface is which type? Isotrophic surface. Okay? He doesn't takes into account the influence of phenomena like transportation arteries. But losch very clearly takes into account the influence of the transportation arteries, how transportation arteries would modify the location of the central places. Okay? So very clearly we find that this is found to be true. So this is basically the case of यहाँ पर एक मिस्टेक है, उसको चेंज कर लो. Don't write it multifunctional because it would create confusion. You simply write it non-specialized. So जहां पर भी ये प्रॉब्लम होगा उसको करेक्ट कर लेना. So as we said, there can be two types: specialized and non-specialized. So जहां पर भी ये प्रॉब्लम है, you just correct it, you make it non-specialized, because it would create confusion. हमने देखा है losch का मॉडल is based upon multifunctionality and Christoller मॉडल is based upon monofunctionality. ठीक है? So एक जगह और है, यहाँ पर भी है, this also, जहां पर भी है you just correct that. So this is the main this is the model of losch central place theory. So losch के central place theory में भी ये अभी इसमें आधा लिखा हुआ है, because his model also he takes into account certain universal principles. Out of those universal principles there are 6 derivative principles. ठीक है? He also arrives at the criteria of hexagonal central places. ठीक है? It is very similar to that of Christoller, but some of the assumptions are different. He is taking more perspective of demand side, while Christoller's model was based upon supply side. His model is guided more by post-Fordism principle. ठीक है? Thus what we find that there is emergence of a difference. He ultimately finds that transportation arteries would be playing very, very dominant role, how the actual central places would be organized in the geographical space or the given landscape. Okay? It would not be uniformly spaced central places like the Christoller has found. Okay? Also there is presence of what? Multifunctionality rather than presence of monofunctionality. ठीक है? So that is the model of losch. अब देखते हैं कंपैरिजन करके. There are so many similarities दोनों में. Like for example, दोनों ही they are talking about centrality, principle of centrality, principle of hierarchy. Both of them are talking about 6 derivative principles. Both of them main objective is to earn profit, that is the economic efficiency. If you talk about in both of them, both of them are examples of positivistic model, as both of them are assuming, making certain simplifying assumptions. Both of them are deductive. ठीक है? वो सब कुछ सेम है. Shape of complementary area, both of them find it to be hexagon. But what is ultimately different that we are finding, number of things are different. Like for example, if we compare, losch central place theory has greater empirical validity. as it is based upon the experience of entire Germany settlement system, unlike Christoller's central place theory based upon southern Germany settlements. ठीक है? Christoller theory is based upon only service function, which he elaborate by taking into account only two services. Three services होना चाहिए यार. Three services: marketing, transportation and administration. He takes into account manufacturing. He का मतलब है यहाँ पर losch. So on the other hand, losch takes into account manufacturing as well. So he takes actually 150 goods and services. So it is very broad, much comprehensive theory than that of the Christoller's theory. Christoller's theory is very rigid, where he treated each function as having separate range, threshold and hexagonal hinterland. Losch theory is more flexible, as he allowed various hexagonal systems and levels to coexist and overlap. ठीक है? How this is coming into picture? Because Christoller theory is based upon an assumption or an implicit assumption that majority of cities are what? Monofunctional. While if you talk about in Losch theory, what we find, it is based upon implicit assumption of majority of cities being multifunctional. Multifunctionality is a rule. ठीक है? So restrictive nature of Christoller's theory, all higher central places are non-specialized. कर दो वहां पर non-specialized and also behave as lower order central place. Losch theory of central places located, according to Losch theory of central places, on the same hierarchy, what can happen? There can be location of both specialized and non-specialized. Two type of central places can be found. Thus, it is not necessary that all higher order central places behave as what? The lower order central places. It is not necessary. अब ऐसा क्यों हो रहा है? Why it is not necessary? Because for Christoller, profit earning is essentially based on least cost approach. But for Losch, earning of profit can be both ways, by reduction of cost or by maximization of revenue. Maximization of the revenue. ठीक है? Christoller's theory is more applicable for developing economies having agrarian characters. Why? Because there is no place, in such economies, industries, manufacturing industries particularly, are not present. While in Losch theory is more applicable from the perspective of advanced economies, because here all type of services are being done, manufacturing as well as the service economies. In Christoller's theory, development level uniformly declines away from the central place. However, in Losch theory, it divides the area into sectors of rich and poor. और भी देखा था हमने, in case of Christoller theory, central places are uniformly spaced, but in case of Losch theory, it is not so. They are divided in what? Sectors, sectoral division. So both of them are trying to formulate universal order. So number of things we can also write about how they are similar. So both of the theories are significant with respect to regional planning. So that is the difference between the Christoller's theory and the Losch theory. Critical evaluation देखें. So Losch theory is criticized for its abstract nature and complex calculations and assertions, because here the probability calculations are very, very complex. It also fails to take into account the supply side of the economy, which can bring changes in the function provided. Thus, what it is doing, it is overemphasizing the demand. It is not, he is saying that the central places would become non-specialized when there is lower demand. यही बोल रहा है वो. But can I say, you talk about a central place which is a manufacturing town, where manufacturing is something of heavy manufacturing, like iron and steel. Did we saw that still in the world, iron and steel industry, metallurgical industries are those which are based upon least cost principle, minimization of the transportation cost, labor cost. Weber's industrial location theory याद है? ठीक है. So there are still, if you look into, there are still number of industries which are where lowering of the cost is more important than the revenue factor. Here the profit can be attained mainly by lowering of the cost. ठीक है. So again it is here, you can see that. For example, सबसे एक बहुत अच्छा example है Tata Steel. If you look into the Tata group of companies, right now all other branches of the Tata group of companies are experiencing a kind of loss. ठीक है. This loss is actually made up by one main company, that is TCS. Earlier Tata Steel was basically what? It was earning profit. Why? Because its main manufacturing was located where? At a place where both coal and iron ore are found very near to each other. But as Tata Steel has expanded its manufacturing units in the rest of the world, what has happened with the transportation cost? It has increased. And what it has led to? It has led to the profits, decline in the profit, even losses. ठीक है. So many of the industries, nature of the industries is such that there is required minimization of the cost. Christoller, what he does, Losch, what he does, he overemphasizes the factor of demand. So they are becoming non-specialized because there is less demand. It is not because of their nature itself. ठीक है. Thus he is neglecting the supply side totally. Like it was same thing, same mistake was done by Christoller, who neglected the demand side totally. ठीक है. अभी हमने देखा था assumptions में भी उसने क्या बोला था? Supply is constant. ठीक है. So he is neglecting totally the supply side. यहां पर दो ही criticism लिखे हुए हैं, but you tell me, can I say, if the theory is very similar to what was Christoller's theory, can I write so many criticisms? Can I say here also his theory is based upon assumptions? Could I have criticized those assumptions? Isotrophic surface, he is also assuming initially. Economic rational humans, he is also assuming initially. So all those assumptions which he has made, they are also to be criticized. ठीक है. Also there are other factors. एक तो abstract nature और complex calculation का हो गया, फिर जो supply side वाला factor हो गया. Then other criticism, complicated pattern of settlement system produced by overlapping of network centers creates a problem in cartographic representation. अभी हमने देखा था, it was making a problem in cartographic representation of how they would be located, because it is very, very complex model. So that is the basic nature of the Losch theory. Despite these limitations, it can be ascertained that Losch central place theory is more dynamic and is more relevant from the perspective of contemporary economic systems. So if we talk about this point, how Losch theory is more relevant, I'll give you 2 minutes. Think what will you write? Relevancy of Losch theory. Central place theory of Losch. Okay, so if we look into the losch theory, first important thing is that losch theory is based upon the idea that cities are basically what? Multi-functional. Majority of the cities are multifunctional cities. Can I say if we look into the distribution of cities in the world, it is true, as monofunctional and specialized towns are limited. Monofunctional and specialized towns are essentially limited. So again, it makes it what? More relevant from today's perspective. Also, you can understand that in modern world, economy is essentially based upon what? Manufacturing and services. Agriculture has reduced its significance. If you look into the GDP of the world, can I say thus losch theory is more relevant, because he took into account what? 150 goods and services which out of which it was also manufacturing. So his theory has more significance. Also, in in losch theory, other things also emerge. Like for example, losch theory is taking into account the overlapping of the complementary areas. Overlapping of the complementary areas of various central places and functions. Now, you tell me, can I say, with the emergence of phenomena like MNCs, phenomena like LPG, phenomena like internet, there is rise of world cities whose complementary areas overlap. So which is more relevant to explain the world city hierarchy? Losch theory. Thus, losch theory is more capable of explaining the world city hierarchy. Explaining the world city hierarchy. ठीक है? Very clearly other factors are also there, like his theory is based upon demand. Can I say in present world, contemporary world, the complementary areas are dynamic. The complementary areas are dynamic and not fixed. Why they are dynamic? As they depend upon demand, which is fluctuating. which is fluctuating. So you tell me, which is more able to explain this situation of dynamic complementary area? Who is more capable? The losch theory is more capable of explaining this such type of complementary areas. So in modern world, losch theory has more significance. In reality, in real world, what we find that central places are not uniformly spaced. They are not uniformly spaced, and also development is, or development level is highly regional. That means there are regional imbalances to be seen. Okay? So which theory is more capable of explaining this? Losch theory has more capability. It takes into account what? For example, factor of transportation routes. It takes into account factor of transportation routes to explain these regional imbalances. Explain these regional imbalances. ठीक है? अब इसका एक एग्जाम्पल अगर देखें, in India it was found that majority of cities, particularly the big cities, were located where? Also the specialized towns, they displayed corridor and axial type of development. Corridor and axial type of development. So corridor का मतलब है that suppose there is a railway line, so इस railway line के concentration इधर उधर एक corridor में you will be finding some big cities to be located like this. So this is what corridor. While on a river bank you are finding that several important cities are located. This is what? It is an axial development. ठीक है? So that is corridor and axial development. So this is one type of location of the cities we found in case of India. Other type of location of cities that we find, देखो यहाँ पर जैसे ये railway corridors बना हुआ है. Other type we found was the urban dispersals. So there were large areas which were basically what? Where there was dispersal which had occurred. Where cities, small cities were separated and they were very much dispersed manner. So can you see that again we find that it is actually related with what? It is actually related with or very similar type of situation you will be finding. Like for example, here you take, there is the Delhi, Kolkata railway line. So here you will be finding there is what? There is a corridor of industrial cities which would be found. And these corridor of industrial cities are what? They are separated from each other by such type of urban dispersals. So in every country we find this. In India it is very much to be found that transportation arteries are playing very much important role in location of the central places. Major cities of India, they are important, higher order central places are located where? They are concentrated more on the transportation arteries. ठीक है? So again, it is what? It is related, or it explains that how much is the usefulness of losch model. Very clearly you can understand. यहाँ पर जो हम जिन areas की बात कर रहे हैं, can I say these areas are also poor areas? ठीक है? These areas are also poor. अब ये पंजाब एंड हरियाणा बाद में बहुत ग्रो कर गया. That is other thing. So you can just remove from there, because here there is greater number of cities to be found. So if I take this particularly the Uttar Pradesh and up till this West Bengal region, what we are finding, it is a very very underdeveloped area. But uske bagal mein what we'll be finding? We'll be finding that there is presence of a corridor. Similarly, another corridor is what? Another corridor is the National Highway 1. Here also what we are finding, there is from Delhi to Chandigarh, there is right now emergence of a conurbation. What is a conurbation? Conurbation is a very large area which has uniform presence of urban landscape. There is no rural area in between. ठीक है? So it is going to be in future very big, largest conurbation of the world. So why it is taking place? Why it is developing? It is developing essentially because there is this transportation route to be present. ठीक है? शायद इसमें होगा, एक मिनट रुको. You can see this conurbation which is emerging. This is the Yamuna river. Actually, this is also the National Highway 1 and 2. So National Highway 1 is going north and National Highway 2 is going south. So you can see this conurbation, where very important major cities and number of cities are concentrating in this conurbation. So starting from north, Kalka, Chandigarh, Ambala, Kurukshetra, Panipat, Sonipat, Delhi, nearby Meerut, Ghaziabad, Faridabad, Vallabhgarh, Hodal, Mathura, Agra. So from Chandigarh to Agra, this area is what? It is a very very important corridor which has become. So it is a very important corridor which is developing. So here can you see that how much important is the transportation line in leading to this development? For example, अब दिल्ली से आगरा का जो स्ट्रेच है, it is also developing very fast. You tell me, can I say Yamuna Expressway would have played very important role? Yamuna Expressway ने क्या किया? यहाँ पर congestion को remove कर दिया, and now you can reach Agra very fast. ठीक है? So if you drive, I reached one time Agra 2 hours. 2 घंटे में पूरा पहुंच गया था. It is so you can drive fast and it is almost not too much traffic. It has provided such type of connectivity. ठीक है? So again, if you talk about Delhi to Agra, it is also one of the very important area which is developing. अब इसके बाहर जाऊंगा, what I will be finding? Rural landscape, agrarian landscape, where some cities would be dispersed in a more like this, at a particular distance from each other. So that area is basically what? That is urban dispersals. So लिख लो इसको. For example, जो हम लास्ट पॉइंट लिख रहे थे उसी को कंटिन्यू कर रहे हैं. So it takes into account the factor of transportation route to explain these regional imbalances. So लिखो. For example, in India, the distribution of cities was found to display corridor and axial development centered around rivers, roads and railways separated by large stretches of urban dispersals, where cities were found to be highly dispersed. Full stop. These areas of urban dispersals are also the ones which are less industrialized and developed. ठीक है. So again what we find, this is very clearly explained more by whose model? क्रिस्टॉलर के मॉडल को एक्सप्लेन कर पा रहा है या लॉश का मॉडल? It is losch model which is better able to explain the pattern that we are finding in case of India. ठीक है. So that is basically how you find that the model is able to better explain the situation. ठीक है. सेम थिंग और भी जगह पर है. जैसे अगर मैं देखूं तो So this was the Great Lake Industrial Belt, याद है? This was the New England Belt. Industrial belt. And can you see? Here they are separated from each other by what? A comparatively less developed landscape is separating them. So why here development has taken place? It is coastal area interconnected to each other. Here there is this is St. Lawrence waterway. ठीक है. So here very clearly the transportation availability has what? It has played a very dominant role. यहाँ पर न्यू इंग्लैंड में majority of the cities are what? They are ports. Large number of ports are located. ठीक है. So that is how again another example of how it is better able to explain the differences, regional differences in location of cities and also the development levels. So losch model is very clearly what? More applicable than that of Christoller's model. ठीक है. Previous year paper then. This question was asked in 2007. This question was given account of the functional basis of central place hierarchy. I will give you 2 minutes. Think what you will be writing. Okay. So functional basis of central place hierarchy. How many of you could very clearly see that the question was talking about central place hierarchy? That means it was not talking only about Christoller. It was both about Christoller losch. सबने देखा? So that means you had to explain the functional basis of both. So when you are talking about the Christollers, functional basis of the Christoller central place hierarchy. So very clearly Christoller, first of all, Christoller takes into account, in fact both of them take into account some important functional concepts. Their theory is based upon more functional concepts rather than theoretical concepts. So functional concepts like threshold, population, functional concepts like central goods and services, other functional concepts like the range of goods and services, other functional concepts like centrality. Both of them, Christoller and losch, it is based upon these functional concepts. So first thing. However, the functional basis of Christoller and losch is different in the sense that Christoller theory is based more on mono functionality. It is more based on monofunctionality rather than multifunctionality. So what Christoller talks about, that why he chooses monofunctionality, because his perspective is what? Is to minimize cost. Minimize cost is giving the economic efficiency. So for him, this minimization of the cost is different with respect to different functions. Is with respect to different functions. ठीक है? So for him it is different. So he elaborates this idea by what? By taking into account three services: marketing, transport and administration. मार्केटिंग, ट्रांसपोर्ट एंड एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन, और तीनों के बारे में जो हमने बात की है वो लिख दिया, एंड दैट वुड कंप्लीट द क्रिस्टोलर्स पार्ट. ठीक है, वी कैन ऑलरेडी सी दैट इन केस ऑफ losch, what was the functional perspective that he saw? The cities or the central places are multi-functional in nature. Does what he does. एक और चीज हम छूट गई, हमसे पीछे बोलना चाहिए था. Just before we are talking about this, for Christoller there is monofunctionality, but with non specialization. उस पार्ट को भी लिखना चाहिए. So for him what was taking place? Each higher order central place was also performing the role of lower order central places. Lower order central places. That means higher you go in the hierarchy, the greater non-specialization it would become. ठीक है, तो इस पॉइंट को भी यहां पर लिखना होगा. Then you talk about losch, how it was, he was talking about multifunctionality, thus he allowed to overlap. उससे पहले वाला पॉइंट उससे कंपैरिजन में लिख दिया, where he is looking into what? He is looking into that there is both specialized and non-specialized which can be found at any particular hierarchical level. ठीक है, so that means मतलब कहने का मतलब है you have to be very clear when you are reading the question. If you make a mistake in reading the question, all your efforts would be essentially gone. ठीक है, so that is the case of central place theory. This is the most difficult theory. Now एक और क्वेश्चन जो मैंने बोला था उसको करते हैं, then you will understand it more. This question was, देखो इसको, how does rank size rule contradicts the central place theory? Rank size rule contradicts the central place theory. I'll give you 2 minutes. Think. Okay. So number of things we find that there is contradiction between them. One important, 3 things mainly you have to elaborate about. So if you talk about the rank size rule, central place theory, very important thing in case of rank size rule is an inductive model. देखा था हमने, it is an inductive model made by G.K. Ziff. On the other hand, CPT is basically what? It is a deductive model. If you look into the case of the rank size rule envisages a non-hierarchical relationship of a kind of non-hierarchical relationship where this type of smooth line we were finding, this was rank and this was the size of settlements. So it is envisaging a what? Non-hierarchical relationship in the settlements, to be very strict, in very strict sense. On the other hand, CPT, can I say, envisaged a kind of stepped pattern where settlements were concentrated where? At particular size classes. There was concentration of settlements, lots of settlements at particular size classes. So it is envisaging a hierarchical relation. Envisaging a hierarchical relationship. Now, if you talk about why this difference, because rank size rule envisages this relationship more on the basis of functionality, while here it envisages it more on the basis of centrality. In Christoller's model, centrality is mainly function of, it depends upon economic functions, goods and services which are provided. So it is mainly what? Depends upon goods, central goods and services. देखा है हमने concept को? And their range. So it is function of central goods and services and their range. While if you look into the case of functionality in rank size rule, हमने पहले भी देखा है that beside economic functions, it also takes what? Some special functions which are performed by the cities. So इसमें if we add the special functions, this curve would become what? Smooth. Thus it was finding this type of curve. ठीक है, so ये तीन चीजें which is making this a kind of contradictory to each other. But we have to understand that more or less both of them are talking about what? A similar type of situation. And if we take the same empirical data, both can, the way they calculate, both can get their own results. So it is more of what? Difference of perspectives. More of what you want to calculate. Christoller was trying to just calculate centrality, while if you talk about Ziff was trying to calculate it on the basis of the functions which are provided. ठीक है, सो थोड़ा सा इसको लिख लेते हैं. देखो, superficially rank size rule seems to contrast with conclusions of Christoller and losch. In nearly every aspect. Full stop. Rank size rule is essentially an inductive model. As opposed to the deductive nature of central place theory. ठीक है, full stop, change the paragraph. It is apparent at superficial level that if the rank size relationship implied in the rule is accepted as accurate finding, comma, then it completely contradicts the hierarchical situation derived in the central place theory. Full stop. Thus, Christoller postulated a stepped and ranked distribution of size classes while Zipf's findings shows a smooth relation where no distinctive classes can be identified. Okay, so at this point you should be making these two diagrams, stepped hierarchy and the smooth hierarchy or smooth relationship curve that exists between them. So that is one thing. Then if you talk about आगे लिखो, इसमें पैराग्राफ चेंज कर लो. It seems, however, that the conflict has been considerably exaggerated. And there is no need to accept the view. That the rank size rule undermines the idea of hierarchy. Full stop. Such a difference between them emerges as rank size rule measures size of the cities by population totals. And not centrality as envisaged by Christoller. Full stop. The central place theory idea of centrality is based upon concepts like central goods and services and their range. Full stop. On the other hand, Zipf's rank size rule embraces not only central place functions, but special functions as well. special functions as well. Full stop. Ziff saw it as a part of broader theory. As a part of broader theory in which any economy was subject to two forces, comma, the one moved towards diversification, where large number of communities benefited from being located near to raw material sources, as they minimized the cost or transportation costs. Full stop. The other force was one of unification, where a small number of large communities minimized movement of finished goods to the consumer. Full stop. In other words, the economic functions of primary, secondary and tertiary activities determined the location of central places or location of cities in the hierarchy. Full stop. But as the cities also performed special functions, a balance emerged, which is reflected in the smooth curve of rank size rule. ठीक है, तो बेसिक समझ में आ गया कि why the rank size rule is different from that of the, if you talk about the central place hierarchy, the central place theory. यही डिफरेंस है. अब देखो ये मैंने